इन्द्रियैश्च महोत्सवै बभूवुपक्वशशयाध्या कलाभ्यं नितरं हरे पुराग्रामेष्वग्रयानैर् इन्द्रियैश्च महोत्सवै बभूवुः पक्वशस्यध्या कलाभ्यं नितरं हरे. Vaishnavas. पुराग्रामेष्वग्रयानैर् इन्द्रियैश्च महोत्सवै बभूवुः पक्वशास्यध्या फलाभ्यां नितरां हरे पुराग्रामेष्वग्रयानैर् इन्द्रियैश्च महोत्सवै बभूवुः पक्वशास्यध्या फलाभ्यां नितरां हरे. Just in the interest of time, I'm just going to go straight to the translation. Translation purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Ki Jai. In all the towns and villages, people held great festivals, performing the Vedic fire sacrifice for honoring and tasting the first grains of the new harvest, along with similar celebrations that followed local custom and tradition. Thus the earth, rich with newly grown grain, and especially beautified by the presence of Krishna and Balaram, shone beautifully as an expansion of the Supreme Lord. Purport. The word agrayanahi refers to a particular authorized Vedic sacrifice, and the word indriye refers to folk ceremonies that have somewhat worldly objectives. Srila Prabhupada comments as follows. During autumn, the fields became filled with ripened grains. At that time, the people became happy over the harvest and observed various ceremonies such as Navana, the offering of new grains to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The new grains are first offered to the deities in various temples, and all are invited to take sweet rice made with these new grains. There are other religious ceremonies and methods of worship, particularly in Bengal, where the greatest of all such ceremonies is held, called Durga Puja. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं. नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनाम्ने गौरतुषे नमः. हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते. तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये. पञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. So, today's verse is describing the start of the harvest season. And as we hear the verse in purport, we immediately think of the Bhagavad-Gita section where Krishna talks about the importance of sacrifice that must be offered, because by sacrifice come rains, by rains come grains, and by grains come nourishment and life support. So I wanted to share 2 points in regards to this verse. The first point was I was just meditating on this idea of why Krishna talks about sacrifice in the Bhagavad-Gita. And I want to invite thoughts on this verse, whatever thoughts people have. And my realization was, I was meditating on why Krishna talks about the significance of sacrifice, is because he wants to impart the value of a culture of selflessness. Because when we understand that our ability to live in this world is dependent on so many other factors, like having good weather and having grains, and the grains depend on rains, and the rains depend on demigods, then it automatically takes away the focus on ourselves as the sole doers or sole creators of our prosperity. And by doing so, by recognizing the other forces that are making us who we are, is a very key message of the Bhagavad-Gita. I was having a nice discussion yesterday with my dear friend Deva Madhava, who just got back from the GBC college. And he was sharing that at the GBC college, there was this one devotee there. Josh, what's his name, from Australia, the famous Kirtaniya? Sri Prahlad, yeah. And so he gave a presentation on the Bhagavad Gita and management. And he was making this point that apparently some famous academic publisher in India asked him to publish a copy of the Bhagavad Gita for managers. And Sri Prahlad told him, well, look, I'm not going to just give you some watered down Gita with some, extracted principle that's really far removed from Krishna's original message, just so a manager can feel like he's applying the Gita at work. I'm going to give you the Gita as it is, like Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhakti, the process of yoga. And that's what the manager is supposed to apply at work. So the publisher was like, okay, go for it. So a really cool, like, Gita for managers. And he talks about this principle of linked leadership, how the Gita talks about this idea of how we don't operate in a vacuum. We operate with the support of others, just like today. Damodar's going to go get boga. So we're all linked in some ways. If he doesn't go to get boga, there's nothing to cook, nothing to eat, nothing to offer. So we're all connected, right? He does his little bit, somebody else does his little bit. We help unload it, somebody pays for it, like that. And then there's an offering made to the Supreme Lord. So when we break this idea of the support network that makes us who we are, we're not operating at full efficiency materially or spiritually. That's the message of the Gita, of his Gita. Understanding that actually even a manager is applying good practices because there's been a generation of thinkers before him who have handed down these ideas one generation after another, and therefore they're now being given to him and he can apply them in his practice. So it takes away the sense of pride and egotism that comes from thinking that I am implementing these good ideas. And it's the same with the idea of sacrifice in the Bhagavad Gita, that when one recognizes that, oh, my ability to eat depends on good weather and the good weather producing rains and so forth, and I then give back. So then Prabhupada paints a very beautiful picture of how this ceremony takes place in the villages of India. And actually, I remember, at least up until some years ago, and I believe still this day in some villages, the start of the harvest season is a festival. It is a festival in the villages, and they still do this, where they take the first grains, and in the more traditional places, parts of India, the first grains are offered to a deity in the temple. It's a sign of gratitude that thank you for giving us a good harvest, because now we can live and feed our families and take care of our bodies and live our karmas, basically. So it's a very elevated culture to recognize how we stand on the shoulders of others. That's the ultimate point I wanted to make, that a cultured person always recognizes the good deeds of others and appreciates them and understands that without the support of others, I wouldn't be where I am today. And therefore, this process of becoming increasingly selfless, ultimately coming to the point of like, well, my self belongs to Krishna. That's the ultimate point. But it begins with karma yoga. It begins with just recognizing that, okay, if I'm going to eat and if I'm going to live, then let me at least offer gratitude to the demigods who produce the rains. And this culture of increasing selflessness is very, very important in spiritual life, isn't it? Right? Just increasingly taking away the center of attention is I, me, and mine, and extending the circle of the self more and more and more until one realizes that the self actually belongs to Krishna, and I can offer my true self, my whole self to Krishna and act as his instrument in this world. The second point this verse makes that I thought was very nice, the verse says, thus the earth, rich with newly grown grain and especially beautified by the presence of Krishna and Balaram, shown beautifully as an expansion of the Supreme Lord. So it's showing how the earth became especially beautiful because Krishna and Balaram were there. And therefore it's shown beautifully as an expansion of the Supreme Lord. So this idea of the presence of the Lord making something more beautiful, making something more glorious is of course a very prominent theme in bhakti, right? So the idea, we often hear this, that when the Lord appears in the heart becomes beautiful. Or we want to make the heart beautiful, so the Lord is invited to come and sit in our hearts. And of course, when the Lord appears, the heart becomes even more beautiful. So this idea is conveyed very nicely in one verse in the 10th canto, which I wanted to share with everyone, and then we can read the commentaries of the Acharyas, and that'll be my class for the day because I wanted to see if anybody has some thoughts. So this is the verse from the 10th canto, chapter 21, verse 10. It's a very beautiful verse. Vrindavanam sakhibhuvo vitanoti kirtim yaddevaki suta padambujalabda lakshmi govinda venu manumatta mayura nityam prikshadri sanva avataranya samasta sattvam. O friend, Vrindavan is spreading the glory of the earth, having obtained the treasure of the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Devaki. In other words, the land of Vrindavan is because the feet of Krishna are touching the land of Vrindavan, that land has become even more special and more glorious. What's important about this point is that whenever the avatars of Vishnu or Vishnu comes to earth, they never touch the earth. They always float just a little bit above the earth. Whereas Krishna, he touches the land of Vrindavan. And therefore you can see the marks of his feet all over Vrindavan. So this is very special. The incarnation of Krishna is very special, and the land of Vrindavan is very special. It attracts Krishna. It attracts Krishna to the point where he wants to contact it. He wants to touch it with his feet. And because of that, Vrindavan is spreading the glory of the earth, that such a place exists on the earth planet where the Lord himself wants to walk and touch the ground. And of course, by his presence, Vrindavan becomes even more glorious. The peacocks dance madly when they hear Govinda's flute, and when other creatures see them from the hilltops, they all become stunned. So this is a description of what happens to the peacocks when they hear Krishna's flute. So let us hear what Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has to say about this verse. He says, the forest of Vrindavan, being the place of Krishna's pastimes, has now become even more sweet. Therefore, let us go there to see that place. There is no fault in doing this. With this in mind, one gopi spoke. So the gopis are glorifying the effect of the flute song of Krishna on the land of Vrindavan, the animals, the trees. And so one gopi is telling the other, like, hey, we should go to the forest of Vrindavan and just see how beautiful it is. The Acharya continues, Vrindavan is spreading the glories of the earth, especially as being better than Swarga, because the earth is marked with the lotus foot symbols of flag and thunderbolt of the son of Yashoda. This is not possible even in Vaikuntha, because in Vaikuntha, Lord Vishnu wears slippers. That's what I think Srila Jiva Goswami says it later on. Okay. Such a cow pasturing area is not possible in Vaikuntha. In that place, hearing Krishna's flute, the mad peacocks dance. Seeing that all living entities on the slopes of the hills become stunned. In that place, the peacocks pray for Krishna to play his flute, saying, this is the peacocks are requesting Krishna, make us dance, make us dance. According to the rhythm established by Krishna, the peacocks make a circle around Krishna and dance while Krishna dances and plays his flute. Satisfied with Krishna's flute playing, the peacocks give their tail feathers as a sign of appreciation. Krishna, in the custom of normal musicians, takes the gifts with glee like happiness, and puts them in his turban. One Acharya comments that to show his gratitude to the peacocks, Krishna takes that which comes from the earth and puts it on the highest part of his body to show how much he appreciates the dancing of the peacocks. Oh friends, tasting that dancing, singing, and flute playing, we desire to see all those creatures, beasts and birds, the deer and doves assembled on the hill slopes who have become stunned in bliss. And this is what's significant about this point is that the acharyas have explained that the gopis, as a result of their particular ecstasy for Krishna, they will project that ecstasy on everything around them. Just like when we have this fault of, let's say we have a fault of like talking too much. So then we look at other people and we think, this guy's so talkative, Everyone is so talkative. But actually we have this fault. So Atmavan Manite Jagat, right? If we have this fault of being very like critical or judgmental, we look at everybody else and we think they're so critical or judgmental. Or we criticize others and judge others, But actually we're carrying this fault. So we're seeing the world. It's interesting, one time one devotee put it like this, that one cannot see a fault in someone else unless one also carries it himself. Else, how will you recognize it? So to be able to recognize that fault in someone else, just unless one is very elevated, then it usually means that we're carrying the same fault ourselves. And that's why we're able to recognize it and point it out in great detail. I remember one time I was talking to Jai Jagannath about something that was bothering me about one devotee. And he said, so, you found a fault in a devotee? good for you. Like, it's an ocean of faults. Like, what do you expect? Kali Yuga. So I was like feeling really small and petty after that. But it's true. It's like that. When we see a fault in someone else, it's because we carry that fault ourselves. And that's why we're able to see it in others. The gopis, on the other hand, they carry is ecstatic love for Krishna. So they project that feeling on everything else around them. So they see the trees as crying for Krishna. They see the birds as longing for Krishna. They see the rivers as longing for Krishna. So they're just projecting their bhav on all the elements of Vrindavan. And that's what makes this point so significant. So here's Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary to this verse. What more can be said about the flute which is held in his hand? Let us describe the glories of Vrindavan instead. We're just discussing this point from the verse that the presence of Krishna and Balaram beautified the earth. So I was just making the point that this idea of like the presence of the Lord making a place more beautiful is expressed very beautifully in this verse from the 21st chapter. It talks about how Vrindavan becomes glorious because Krishna and Balaram's footprints are there. So then we're just reading the Acharya's commentaries to that verse. Let us describe the glories of Vrindavan instead. O friend, Vrindavan spreads glory of the earth more than Vaikuntha, since it is marked with Krishna's footprints. Or Vrindavan, which is marked with his footprints, spreads more glory. It has become glorious by wealth produced from the footprints of Krishna. In this way, it is incomparable. It has his footprints directly, not with shoes on. Thus, Vrindavan is most fortunate. So this is kind of a significant point that Krishna's feet touched the land of Vrindavan. The gopis call Krishna the son of Devaki because of the words of Garga Muni. Quote, previously he was known as the son of Vasudeva. By this they also hide their feelings. And I was wondering about that. I was wondering why it is that they call him the son of Devaki, and by this they also hide their feelings. So if anybody has any comments on this, then please feel free to share when I finish this commentary. Govinda means the controller of cows according to the dictionary. They use the name in that sense since Krishna became famous as Govinda only after the bathing ceremony by Indra. Oh yeah, this is another interesting point, right? So, okay, I'll mention this later. In the next verse, however, they cannot hide whom they mean since they call Krishna the son of Nanda in that verse. Or Devaki can also be another name of Yashoda. So this is also a contribution of Srila Jiva Goswami that when they say the son of Devaki, they could be referring to the son of Yashoda, because the Vishnu Purana says, quote, the wife of Nanda had two names, Yashoda and also Devaki. Continuing on with the commentary here, Govinda also means the king of the cows, with the V indicating special qualities. So I guess the Govinda, the V in the Govinda indicates special qualities. In other words, the gopis refer to the son of Yashoda who is surrounded by cowherd boys and cows and decorated with forest ornaments. The good fortune of Vrindavan is that it possesses the object of our desire. The peacocks dance because they mistake him for a dark rain cloud gently rumbling. That was really sweet. Because, in India, usually the peacocks are dancing when the rain clouds come out. And somehow the coming of rain clouds is always accompanied by a peacock man appearing out of nowhere. So the peacocks are dancing because they mistake Krishna for a dark rain cloud, gently rumbling. Otherwise, they would remain motionless in bliss like everyone else. This shows their extraordinary nature. Or, related to these peacocks with the highest natural affection for Krishna, all others of the species, by the mercy of the Lord, even in other places, developed affection for clouds, which were similar to Krishna after hearing Govinda's flute. I see. I'll read it again. Or relate, because I couldn't quite follow what he just said. Or related to these peacocks with the highest natural affection for Krishna, all others of the species, I guess all of the peacocks, by the mercy of the Lord, even in other places, developed affection for clouds, which were similar to Krishna after hearing Govinda's flute. I see. So when they heard Govinda's flute, clouds that reminded them of Krishna also, they developed affection for them. This is just the nature of hearing Krishna's flute. Okay, that's beautiful. This phrase should be understood in the following verses also. Or, here's another reason why Vrindavan is glorious. Or Vrindavan was filled with the peacocks, and because of the mantra-like sounds of the flute, which was most attractive. Though the flute was the cause of the peacocks dancing, it was the cause of others remaining stunned. However, they all stood like an audience watching the peacocks dance. So they're stunned, but they're watching the peacocks dancing. Or they remained stunned on the top of the hill, since it was most attractive, being the sitting place of the Lord. Thus, the other living beings remained stunned on the top of the hill at high places to see the performance. Or the peacocks, on seeing that Krishna had come to the forest with a peacock feather decoration on his head, out of affection danced. So another meaning is they see the peacock feather on Krishna's head, they're like, oh, that's from us. Let us dance out of joy. It's kind of sweet. It's like, I notice this happens a lot, like when devotees get to dress Kishore Kishori. Sometimes they'll ask me, like, so how did you see Kishore Kishori today? How was the dressing? Because there's some feeling of some connection there because we helped decorate the Lord today. And I think it's probably the same with the peacocks. They see the feather and they think, oh, we helped decorate the Lord today. This is joyful. This is ecstatic. Let's dance. After that, all creatures being detached from all other goals, except seeing Govinda dance, remained on the top of the hill. In this way, Vrindavan showed itself superior to Vaikunta. Ah, we cannot attain such perfection. We are most unfortunate. Their characteristic of dissatisfaction, which is natural to prema, should be understood in all the verses, right? So, Srila Jiva Goswami is saying that the gopis naturally feel dissatisfaction because of their love. They feel like they cannot have as much love as others, or they're not as fortunate to have as much association with Krishna as, say, the flute, for instance. Or they're not physically present with Krishna in the forest as he's dancing and giving a killer performance for the peacocks and all the other animals, and so the gopis feel a little bereft. But the point is, Srila Jiva Goswami says, in this way Vrindavan showed itself superior to Vaikunta. So, like that. And I was just thinking, one last closing thought I wanted to mention, how it was in our scriptures we see this theme repeatedly, how things become more beautiful when there is the presence of God, right? The Vrindavan becomes more glorious because Krishna is present, and I was just thinking how life would be if we didn't have Krishna in our life. Like imagine. I remember going to a Mayavadi temple one time, and they had an altar, and they even had deities of Krishna, but it was like really sad. It was like they were painted deities. Nobody was worshiping them, and they were just behind like a glass wall, and you could just tell Krishna wasn't there. This was like a statue. Krishna wasn't there. And it just made me, for a second, it just made me think like, wow, what would happen in my life if Krishna wasn't there, right? Like, what if someone said you cannot ever chant Hare Krishna again, you cannot take a look at the deity again, you cannot touch the Bhagavatam? Like, we would feel so. Sometimes we think we're neophytes. We are neophytes. Actually, we shouldn't think we are. At least I am. I don't know about all of you, but I am. Um, so so we might think, oh, like I have nothing for Krishna. I have no feeling for Krishna. I have no love for Krishna. But somehow I feel that even as very new devotees, if Krishna was taken away from our life, we would immediately feel a pang of like, no, like that's not good, right? We couldn't let go of that. So that shows that there's something. Otherwise, why would we feel this sense of loss if Krishna was taken away from our lives or our hearts, you know? And therefore I was something that always personally, this is a personal note now, that always scares me is one time myself and Jai Jagannath were studying the different offenses to the holy name, and we were studying in the Bhakti Sandarbha how what are the symptoms of having offended or made offenses to the holy name and to the Vaishnavas, specifically to the holy name. And it was saying, Srila Jiva Goswami explains in the Bhakti Sandarbha that the first symptom of having made offenses is that one loses one's taste for hearing and chanting. And then one starts to justify material desires. And eventually one thinks that basically like whether I do bhakti or whether I go out and work in the world, like it's not like one is better than the other. So then basically we create our exit path from the association of devotees. And I remember it really scared me, like the thought that, oh, I could, if I make so many offenses, I would lose my taste to hear and chant about Krishna. And then like there'll be no Krishna in my life. And what would my life look like without Krishna consciousness, without the association of devotees? It was a bit of a scary thought. And that's why I think it was healthy to become a little aware of the consequences of being very offensive, because one will lose one's taste for hearing and chanting. And would any devotee in his right mind actually be happy without Krishna in his or her life? Probably not, because we all know how much more glorious our life becomes as a result of Krishna consciousness. Um, so that was my message for the day. I would like to ask everyone if they have some comments or something they wanted to add to this discussion about the presence of Krishna, how it makes Krishna, or how it makes, things more beautiful. And specifically, Srila Jiva Goswami makes this point about how the gopis call Krishna as the son of Devaki, as a way of hiding their feelings. So I don't know if anybody had a thought on that as well. Go ahead. Okay. Mm. You want to grab the mic in case somebody's listening online, and we don't want them to miss out on Josh's comments. Dead. You can take mine.
I was reading the other day, or yesterday rather, that Shukadeva Goswami does a similar thing. He calls Krishna Shauri to indicate him as the son of Vasudeva. But he's doing this to take the side of the gopis, and he's speaking out of anger. So he's saying, you're like a Kshatriya, and that's why you're being so hard-hearted. If you were born of the cowherd people, then you would be softer, and you wouldn't act this way with the gopis. So this just came to mind when you said this thing, but I don't know why Jiva Goswami is saying the gopis referred to him as Devaki Nandana to hide their feelings. He called him Shauri to indicate that he was the son of Vasudeva, to say that you're a Kshatriya, and so it's no wonder that you have a hard heart, and that you can therefore act this way with the gopis. If you were born of the cowherd people, then you would have a soft heart, and you wouldn't be duplicitous like this. Yeah, so I remember that. And just a reflection, I like this point from, I believe it was also from Jiva Goswami, that he turns it around. He says that actually all peacocks, they dance when they see rain clouds because these original peacocks, they dance when they see Krishna. And so relating to them, they dance when they see the rain clouds. I thought, yeah. But even on a subconscious level somehow, he kind of points it out. That all the other peacocks in the species, they may not even know Krishna, but because there's something coming from these original peacocks, that's why they dance when they see rain clouds. That's really, yeah. So that's